In the shadowy days of 14 BBY, the Dark Lord stood firmly at the Emperor's side, yet, as all Sith do, he schemed. To crush his master, he needed a secret weapon, and that weapon was born during the Clone Wars. On Talos, Jedi, Kento, Marek, and Molly defied the Order's laws, fell in love, and fled to Kashyyyk to raise their son, Galen, far from the Republic's collapse. Order 66 swept across the stars, slaughtering Jedi, but the exiles survived in hiding among the Wookiees until Molly died protecting them. Then came Vader. Ruthless and relentless, he hunted Jedi remnants across the galaxy. When he struck down Kento, he discovered the boy strong in the Force, untouched by the Jedi Code. Galen Marek, taken in secret, would be shaped into Starkiller, the ultimate apprentice forged in darkness to one day bring down an emperor. The dark figure had learned the Wookiees had sheltered a fugitive Jedi for years, sparking an invasion of their homeworld. While Imperial troops clashed with the locals, he hunted his quarry alone, cutting down defenders until he reached a hut marked with a family crest. Inside waited the exiled Jedi, who fell swiftly before his power, yet the hunter sensed an even greater presence. Believing it to be the Jedi's master, he demanded answers, only to be told that master was long dead by his own hand. As he moved to deliver the final blow, his weapon was suddenly wrenched away by a boy acting on instinct. Realization struck this was the source of the power he felt, the Jedi's son. The Jedi urged the boy to flee, but the dark figure crushed his throat, leaving the child alone. In shock, the boy turned the stolen weapon on him, but a squad of soldiers arrived, their commander ordering the boy's execution. The soldiers did not live to carry it out. The dark figure reclaimed his weapon, cutting them down, then commanded the boy to follow. Taken aboard a massive warship still under construction, the child was about to face a life of unending pain and a destiny that would reshape him forever. Is this helpful so far? Under the shadow of his armored master, the apprentice known only as Starkiller was forged in pain and discipline. His past erased and his future chained to the dark path. The master's ambition was clear one day to strike down the Emperor, but for that he needed a weapon of unparalleled power, and Starkiller's raw potential was almost beyond belief. Years of relentless trials followed, each one crueler than the last. From being cast unarmed onto a hostile world and hunted by deadly assassins, to enduring constant ambushes from his shape-shifting training droid, Proxy, whose very purpose was to kill him. Survival meant drawing strength from hatred, sharpening every instinct until he became a living blade. Yet amid the endless combat, Starkiller and Proxy formed a strange bond, a flicker of connection in a life built on shadows and blood. Raised in the shadow of cruelty, he clung to rare sparks of compassion born from an unlikely friendship, yet convinced himself that strength could only come through suffering. In one grim test, he ordered his droid to chain him in darkness without food until he could forge a weapon through sheer will failing, but hardening himself through the agony. This was only one of many trials he inflicted upon himself, but despite his growing power, he could never glimpse the future, a gift common among others like him. That shortcoming gnawed at him, feeding the belief he was still unworthy of his ultimate purpose, to one day destroy the Emperor. Loyal to the only father figure he knew, he longed to be recognized as a true apprentice. But his master kept him as a silent blade in the shadows, eliminating both enemies and allies deemed a threat. Years later, during what seemed a routine duel, his master ordered him to kneel, a command never before given, leaving him frozen in confusion, suspecting that perhaps, at last, his strength had failed him. Is this helpful so far? His loyalty to the Dark Master overpowered his doubts, so he waited for death only to be unexpectedly acknowledged, knighted, and named the Master's Apprentice. Declared fully trained, he was given his greatest trial yet: to hunt down a legendary Jedi survivor, a brilliant war general who had shunned clone soldiers and built his own loyal militia, a choice that saved him from betrayal during the Purge. Now hiding in the Outer Rim and waging war against the Empire, the Jedi was striking an Imperial shipyard when the apprentice was sent to kill him and return with his blade as proof. Ordered to leave no witnesses, even among Imperial ranks, the assassin wrestled with the command but masked his hesitation, convincing himself that eliminating the Jedi and anyone else in his path was simply another step toward his destiny in the shadows. As Starkiller approached the rogue shadow, he didn't expect to find someone new waiting for him, his ninth pilot, Juno Eclipse. Although he had mastered piloting himself, Vader always assigned others to fly the ship so Starkiller could focus on deadly missions. This new assignment was anything but ordinary. Juno wasn't just the first female to sit in that chair, she was also a prodigy. Accepted into the Imperial Academy at 14, she soared through the ranks, led elite squadrons, and even caught Vader's eye with her skills. But something about her didn't quite fit the mold. She lacked the cold ruthlessness the Sith Lord craved. Missions like the brutal sterilization of Kos tested her limits, leaving doubts Vader could sense. Her questioning loyalty made her a liability, so instead of execution, she was reassigned to Starkiller. Unaware of her past, Starkiller saw her arrival as yet another mind game from Vader. Another test wrapped in a calm voice and sharp eyes. As the trio set course for Narada, the droid revealed the Jedi General's past, a respected commander who vanished after the war, evading the Empire for nearly 20 years before suddenly reappearing in open defiance. The strange timing made the assassins suspect the general wanted to be found, though the reason remained unclear. Upon arrival, doubt gnawed at him, for most of those he cut down were Imperial troops. Steeling himself as if facing another trial from his master, he tore through the TIE fighter facility, hunting survivors, only to learn the general's militia had seized the command center. Cutting down all in his path, he arrived as the facility plummeted from the sky, finding the veteran waiting calmly. Both were surprised the assassin had expected a soft target, while the general had expected his old enemy, not a young warrior. Their clash was fierce and unrelenting, each countering the other's moves, until the assassin shifted to a defensive form learned through countless drills, channeling legendary techniques. The general pressed with slow, deliberate strikes chained to sudden bursts, trying to wear him down, but the younger fighter held firm, exploiting a momentary lapse to turn the tide. Though the general was skilled and strong, his years and refusal of the dark side left openings, forcing him at last to acknowledge the assassin's formidable skill. Driven to desperation, he tore the command center free from the shipyard and sent it plummeting toward the planet's atmosphere, reigniting a fierce duel as blades locked in a storm of sparks. Neither gained the upper hand until the older warrior was struck by a force vision revealing a place in the younger fighter's future, a revelation that froze him mid-struggle. Seizing the moment, the assassin forced the Jedi's blade back into his eyes, blinding him his first true victory over a Jedi outside training. The master staggered, vulnerable to a killing strike, but a sudden vision of a long-forgotten father urging him to flee broke the assassin's focus. Believing it a trick, he hesitated, giving the Jedi the chance to shatter the viewport and escape into the atmosphere. Frustrated, but certain the blinded master was no longer a threat, the assassin retrieved his fallen foe's weapon and leapt to the passing ship below, knowing he had failed to finish the kill but earning his master's grudging respect for standing against a warrior of such skill. Is this helpful so far? The Sith Lord had just learned of another Jedi hiding on a distant scrap world. Convinced this target was stronger than his own apprentice and certain the mission would be near impossible. Yet he told the apprentice that victory would prove his strength to one day challenge the Emperor himself. Unaware they were overheard by a quiet observer, the apprentice traveled far from the heart of the Empire toward the desolate planet. Little was known about the target except that he was a reclusive master skilled in building droids, once replacing fallen clone troopers with his own mechanical army during the war, surviving only because none remained under his command during the Purge. Upon arrival, the crew spotted a crude replica of the Grand Jedi Temple, clearly the Master's work, and the apprentice set off across the treacherous wasteland. Salvagers infested the area, forcing him to recall his master's orders of leaving no witnesses. Made simpler, now that he faced opportunists instead of Imperial soldiers, though a fresh bounty on his head gave them reason to attack. Cutting through them, he reached the Imitation Temple, where the Master's droid guardians awaited, but years of sparring with a far more advanced machine had made this fight almost too easy. Is this helpful so far? The Dark Figure's sources had pinpointed another elusive Jedi hiding far out on Rexus Prime, a place so distant it gave the apprentice time to size up his quarry. The Master, convinced this target was stronger than his pupil, dangled the promise that victory here would prove him worthy of one day overthrowing the ultimate ruler. Neither realized a quiet observer had overheard every word. Little was known of the Jedi, except for his reclusive nature and talent for crafting droids, honed during the war to replace fallen soldiers. Upon arrival, the crew spotted a crude imitation of the Grand Temple from the capital, clearly built by the Jedi himself. Landing nearby, the apprentice pushed through treacherous heaps of junk, encountering scavengers who saw him as both a threat and a payday thanks to a fresh bounty. Following his master's ruthless orders, he cleared them out before storming the temple. Inside, the path upward was guarded by the Jedi's own mechanical creations, but years sparring with a far more advanced droid made this resistance little more than a warm-up. Paratus' centuries-old madness was no match for the assassin's skill, but just as victory seemed near, Starkiller found himself locked in battle with a towering droid golem that thrashed and wrecked its way through the temple. Their clash led him into a twisted replica of the Jedi Council chamber, complete with eerie mannequin versions of long-dead Jedi Masters, proof of Paratus' unraveling mind. No sane Jedi would have rebuilt an entire council from scrap. Starkiller finally disabled the monstrous droid, only to discover it wasn't just a machine. Paratus himself had been piloting it from within. Emerging in a mechanical harness to boost his tiny Alina frame, the deranged Jedi wielded a lightsaber pike with expert precision, matching Starkiller blow for blow, but his cybernetic limbs betrayed him. The assassin recognized the flaw, just like a certain Dark Lord. Paratus couldn't channel Force lightning without frying his circuits. Starkiller struck with a devastating blast, expecting the end, but the mannequins around him suddenly came to life. They were combat-ready droids, programmed with the fighting styles of the original Jedi Masters they mimicked, and the real battle had only just begun. Though his skills still eclipsed theirs, the sheer swarm of foes forced Starkiller to strain, especially under the relentless assault of Paradise. Yet he struck back with precision, cutting down every Jedi mannequin before hurling the Yoda droid straight at his enemy. Grief over the fallen masters left him momentarily exposed, but he soon recognized the madness in Paradise's eyes, a madness born not from hate, but from years of isolation and the trauma of failing to save the Jedi Temple. Matching each attack, Starkiller shattered his foe's weapon and crushed him beneath a mass of machinery. As Paradise lay dying, regret weighed heavily on him, and he vanished in a brilliant burst of Force energy, Starkiller's first Jedi kill. Victory brought no triumph, only a conflicted stirring at the Master's tragic fate. Pushing down the emotion, he turned to return to his master, only to be summoned again, this time back to the Jedi Temple for another trial. The second infiltration proved far trickier. Imperial Senate sentinels guarded the entrance, snipers lined the garrison, and security had doubled since his first strike. Yet, even with every measure in place, the Imperial forces still could not contain him. Advancing through the temple's main hall, he was struck by another vision of his father, warning him not to let anger cloud his path. In the archives, instead of danger, he saw her seemingly in pain at the far end. Concern dropped his guard, only for her to leap at him with lethal intent. She was no ally, but a phantom Darth Phobos, master of fear, able to take the shape of one's deepest terrors. Once so dangerous that both Jedi and Sith united to destroy her, she now served as a trial for those who must conquer fear to avoid the dark path. The duel was unlike any before. She slipped into shadow, striking without warning, forcing him to defend rather than attack. Desperation drove her to conjure illusions, multiplying herself, even wearing the guise of his companion, causing his strikes to falter. But resolve hardened, he pierced through the deception and her chest with his lightsaber, ending the trial. Though the fierce warriors of Felucia were formidable, they were no match for the deadly Sith assassin slicing his way through the jungle. He could sense the power and cunning of the Jedi Master, who had survived for decades since the Order's fall. Yet something about her presence disturbed the balance of the Force. She seemed less like a guardian and more like a ruler, leading the natives rather than living among them. Battling through dangers, including a rancor, he reached the strange village built upon the colossal body of an ancient Sarlacc, a living abyss so massive it housed an entire city between its monstrous jaws. There, his target awaited, greeting him with mockery for arriving in another's place. Words were wasted, blades ignited. Their clash was fierce, the Jedi's voice weaving philosophy through every strike, but he pushed forward. When she called on the Sarlacc, its titanic tentacles lashed at him, turning the duel into a brutal 2-on-1 struggle. Skill and ferocity kept him alive. until a surge of crackling force lightning drove her to her knees. As her strength failed, she spat one last truth that he was nothing but a slave, and in the end, the Sith always devoured their own. Though the warriors of Fallujah were formidable, they were no match for the precision of the Sith assassin cutting through the jungle. He sensed something off about the Jedi Master ahead, powerful, cunning, but meddling with the planet's balance between light and dark. This was no hermit living among natives. She ruled here. Reaching the village after battling a rancor, he found it perched upon a gargantuan, ancient sarlacc, an entire city built between its monstrous jaws. His target awaited, taunting him as the duel began. She lectured on Jedi ideals. He ignored her, pressing the attack until her ally, the sarlacc, lashed out with colossal tentacles. The assassin fought them both, his mastery sharpened by countless battles, and struck her with relentless force lightning. Weakened and falling, she spat her final words, calling him nothing but a slave, doomed to betrayal by his own kind. The assassin pledged unwavering loyalty to his master, even as the dying Jedi Master hurled herself into the Sarlacc pit in a final burst of Force energy defeated. Returning to report his triumph, he was told the time had come. He was finally strong enough to stand beside Vader against the Emperor. Yet, as he arrived at the Executor, something felt wrong. Though Shakti's final words echoed in his mind, he remained loyal, never suspecting that the betrayal she spoke of would come from Vader himself. Back on the ship, after enduring countless trials, he approached his master, believing he was about to fulfill the destiny he'd been molded for since childhood, to strike down the Emperor and rise as a true Sith Lord. But instead of glory, he saw the Emperor's flagship looming outside, and realized too late it was a trap. Vader coldly revealed the truth. The Emperor hadn't been summoned, he had followed. And without hesitation, the Master ignited his blade and drove it through his apprentice. Barely able to stay conscious, he staggered as agony ripped through him, only to see the droid step in, projecting the Emperor's cold hologram. The ruler's voice dripped with venom as he declared that the Master had broken the sacred rule by taking on an apprentice, and the only way to atone was to end him. Shocked, the apprentice begged for mercy, but the Master, bound by the Emperor's will, unleashed the Force, hurling him mercilessly around the chamber before flinging him into the void of space. Drifting in the freezing darkness, death crept close until a vessel hauled him aboard. Broken but alive, he was rebuilt with cold machinery while old, buried memories surged back. 6 months later, his eyes opened to a grim reality. Restrained on a lab table, the Master looming above. Rage erupted as he accused him of betrayal, only to hear the calm, bitter explanation there had been no choice, only the Emperor's command. Faced with an ultimatum to either return to his master's service or perish in a self-destructing lab, Starkiller reluctantly agreed, though the fracture of trust still gnawed at him. His master claimed spies were watching too closely for him to act, so Starkiller's new role was to rally an army of rebels to spark a galaxy-wide uprising, all while cutting every tie to his past except for Proxy. Yet the transmission was only a projection through Proxy's mimicry. Overjoyed that Starkiller lived so he could one day kill him, Proxy joined him in hijacking the Imperial's navigation to crash into a star, forcing a dash to their ship. Along the way, Starkiller learned Juno was imprisoned as a traitor, and despite warnings about breaking orders, he fought through Imperial troops, lightsaber in hand, to reach her cell, driven not only by necessity, but by an unspoken need to keep her close after all they had endured together. He arrived just in time to pull her from the Empire's grasp, securing her promise to walk away from its shadow while staying at his side. With her trust regained, he kept his lingering loyalty to his master hidden, even as doubts gnawed at him. Together they escaped the doomed ship, her expert piloting steering them clear of certain destruction. He told her of his plan to gather allies against the Empire and of his desire to find a teacher who could reveal the side of the Force his master had concealed. Their search led them from Narada to the ancient world of Zost, and finally to Bespin, where the once proud warrior they sought had withered into a blind, drunken relic of his former self. But the Empire was closing in, sending one of its deadliest agents, and so the crew raced to reach him first. Finding him slumped in a cantina, he approached in the guise of a Jedi, only to be met with inebriated defiance. When stormtroopers attacked, he fought not as an assassin cleaning up witnesses, but as a protector shielding innocents while the old warrior cowered beneath a table, marking the first time his blade truly turned against the Empire. Starkiller's escape from the Empire turned into a chaotic mess thanks to the drunk old man he had to drag along, who spent the whole time resisting and trying to run off on his own. Things hit the fan when a deadly shadow guard appeared, and Starkiller, distracted, didn't notice the old man slipping away. Forced to drop the act, he unleashed the dark side to crush his foe before the stubborn elder vanished or got himself killed. While searching for him, Starkiller realized the guard wasn't one of Vader's secret warriors, but likely tied to the Emperor, only for another, stronger one to show up and overpower him. Reaching the docks, he found the place crawling with Imperial troops and 2 more shadow guards, pushing him into a brutal fight that left him running purely on instinct, bending the Force to his will as he tore through them like ragdolls. When the dust settled, the old man appeared again, no longer a drunk but a stern Jedi who admitted the young warrior was skilled yet still far from ready to challenge the Emperor's might. This time, Starkiller appealed to his honor, convincing him to join and revealing he had allies in the Senate ready to move against the Empire. Strengthened by his battles on Bespin, Starkiller felt the pull of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant once more, believing his final trial awaited him there. And when he arrived for the 3rd time, the reinforced Imperial garrison proved just as powerless against the rogue assassin as before. Starkiller sliced through the Imperial ranks and entered the Jedi Temple, drawn to a hidden path leading through ancient tunnels to the towering Jedi Council chamber. There, a haunting vision unfolded, his master locked in combat with an unfamiliar Jedi. In this surreal duel, the unknown Jedi triumphed over Vader, and believing it real, Starkiller rushed to defend his master. But the Jedi reached out with words instead of blows, urging him to reject the darkness. Starkiller, hollowed by years in the shadows, refused, claiming the dark side was all he had left. They clashed. Raw, unrelenting power surged as Starkiller struck the Jedi down, only to be shaken by a cruel truth: the fallen warrior had been his father all along. What began as a trial had become a revelation. Determined to uncover more, he traveled to another spire of the temple, carved a path through more Imperials, and reached the sacred holocron vault. There, a message from his father awaited, telling him his future was his to choose, and that he must complete the Jedi trials. Until now, Starkiller had never lived his own life, only followed orders. But the spark of something more had begun. Is this helpful so far? Driven by the haunting echo of his father's memory, he stepped into the final trial, only to be pulled into a Force vision where a shadowy duelist challenged him without hesitation. Blades clashed in a furious dance until he struck away the foe's helmet, revealing a pale, twisted version of himself, a darker self consumed by the abyss. Shock froze him, granting his sinister twin the chance to drive him deeper into the labyrinth of his mind. The battle turned savage, but with a precise strike to the back, he felled the dark reflection. Waking, he found his left hand altered, clawed like the specter's dropping, a grim reminder that the darkness within could never fully be banished. Seeking counsel aboard the ship, he was met with the old Jedi's cold dismissal. Soon after, they set course for a ravaged world, once green but now scarred by the Empire's skyhook, a towering chain for Wookiee slaves. Though he did not yet remember this place as his childhood home, the forests, the air, and the looming structure stirred fragments of visions, pieces of a past still locked away. With subtlety at first, the warrior bent the minds of passing troopers, prying loose the location of an Imperial base, hiding a mysterious guest. But stealth soon gave way to open assault. Stormtroopers fell, an armored walker toppled, and the path to the main lodge lay clear. Inside, he searched for the prize his allies' contact demanded, yet found nothing worthy of such peril until he met the guest, a defiant princess who mistook him for an enemy. She believed her Jedi ally long dead and revealed she was being held to keep her father, a senator, from speaking against Imperial rule. Realizing her father was the contact, he told her the Jedi lived and that he was sent to rescue her. She agreed to leave, but only if he destroyed the looming skyhook first. As she escaped with a stolen shuttle, he descended into the forest below, where an old hut steeped in a dark presence awaited alongside a warning from his Jedi mentor to leave it be. The Jedi general reluctantly admitted that the senator had approached him to help rescue his daughter, but his own weakened state made him unfit for the task, so the senator sought help on Felucia. unaware that the warrior had already slain their intended ally. Choosing to keep that death a secret, the warrior ended the conversation and wandered off, only for his pilot companion to notice his distraction. He deflected her concern by offering to take the controls so she could rest. On the journey, he researched the senator and found something oddly familiar, though he could not place it, and pressed on with the mission to locate him, alive or dead. This time, the Empire was present on Felucia, making things far more dangerous. They discovered the senator's abandoned shuttle, and the pilot voiced her fear that an old Jedi might discover their former ties to the Empire. The warrior's darker side surfaced, vowing to silence the Jedi if necessary, before steering the focus back to convincing the senator to join their cause. He knew this would be far more challenging than winning over a drunken Jedi or a headstrong teenager, and as he advanced through the jungle, he felt an unsettling shift. The entire planet seemed to have sunk deeper into the shadows since their last visit. The Jedi General confessed that Orana had been his contact and had tried to enlist him to rescue his daughter, but due to his own condition, he was unfit for the task. Instead, Orana traveled to Felucia to seek Shaki's aid, unaware she had already been killed by Starkiller, who chose to keep her death secret. After the talk, Marek set off alone to find solace until Juno approached, sensing something troubled him. Starkiller kept his thoughts to himself, offering instead to pilot their trip to Felucia so she could rest. On the way, he investigated the senator, finding something oddly familiar, though his focus stayed on finding Orana, alive or dead. Unlike before, the Empire was now on Felucia. They found the senator's shuttle abandoned, and Juno, uneasy, voiced concerns about Ramota discovering their past ties to the Empire. Starkiller coldly assured her that if that happened, the old Jedi would not live to speak of it. Steering the conversation back to their mission, he knew convincing Orana to join the rebellion would be far harder than swaying Kota or Leia. Pushing deeper into the jungle, Marek was struck by how the planet had sunk further into darkness after Shakti's death, so much so that even one long accustomed to the dark side felt its weight. On a hostile, unforgiving world, Starkiller grappled with the raw essence of the dark side, realizing that nature itself thrived on conflict, not harmony, and that this endless struggle was the true fuel of darkness. Returning to the spot where he'd last seen a Jedi Master, he found only ruins. The Empire had seized control, chained a monstrous beast, and forced the surviving natives into hiding. Drawn deeper into the planet's corruption, he journeyed toward a desolate graveyard of giants, haunted by visions he once had while near death. Visions that explained his strange familiarity with certain rebels. There, he found a captured senator who revealed a chilling truth. A former apprentice had gone mad, twisted by darkness, and now hoped to bargain with the Empire using him as bait. That madness had tainted the entire planet. Before Starkiller could act, she appeared, riding a beast, her face from his visions now real. A brutal battle erupted. Starkiller dove inside the creature and brought it down, forcing her into a desperate duel. Her savage attacks were relentless, but as he defended himself, he saw their similarities, how easily she had fallen, and how easily she could rise again. He remembered what he'd learned. The Force was fluid, not bound by sides. Fighting her wasn't about rejecting the dark, it was about moving forward. She was simply in his way. Switching tactics in a flash, the warrior launched into a fierce assault, unleashing the aggressive Juo form to shatter his foe's focus. With a surge of power, he hurled her into the ground so hard she had no choice but to yield. She pleaded for mercy, promising to abandon her dark path if spared, but he doubted her worth, sensing she fought to survive rather than dominate. Still, memories of another fallen figure swayed him, and he let her go. Later, aboard his ship, tensions flared as his allies debated the danger of open rebellion, urging instead to expose cracks in the Empire's armor. Feigning agreement, he secretly reached out to his old master for guidance, only to be attacked mid-weight by his droid in a legendary warrior's guise. Dispatching the machine with ease, he received his master's holographic reply. A new target, a starship yard ripe for destruction, and a stern warning to sever ties with his companions. When the transmission ended, the droid grumbled about playing the Sith Lord, earning a dry remark that the feeling was likely mutual, unaware that someone close had overheard everything. She fumed at his stubborn loyalty to his master despite everything, yet still believed he was the key to their rebellion's future, its fate resting in his hands rather than their enemies. She pleaded with him not to force her away from the life she'd grown to love, having already lost her place in the Imperial Navy. He listened in silence, torn between forging his own path or following the one laid before him, until finally replacing the crystal in his lightsaber with the blue one from his home, its glow marking it as truly his own and hinting at doubts over his allegiance. Meanwhile, she and their droid shared the plan to use the Empire's colossal ore cannon on Rexus Prime to destroy a key shipyard. Before departure, their ally asked about a missing Jedi Master, unaware that the truth of his fate lay heavy on the apprentice's conscience. On the mission, thoughts of her distracted him until she warned of a dangerous scavenger nearby. Shaking off his laughs, he fought through an ambush from the scavenger's gang, who blamed him for the Empire's presence after the Jedi Master's fall. Attempts at peace failed as they opened fire, forcing him to strike back, killing their leader mid-flight to prevent a dangerous secret from spreading. With the gang defeated, he moved toward the war cannon, troubled by the realization that his power was raw and destructive, lacking the higher mastery of the Jedi. What he once thought impossible now stood before him, a test of will against sheer magnitude. Size and mass meant nothing to the Force, so he poured every ounce of strength into halting the plummeting warship, straining under its colossal weight until desperation drove him to focus on the one image that could anchor him. Her, and with that, he steered the vessel into the ground before him. Chaos erupted as wreckage skidded toward him, yet slowing its fall gave him the chance to escape unscathed, only to find the droid had survived both their duel and the crash. Its core programming damaged, so the drive to destroy him was gone, though the machine deemed itself useless and begged to be left behind. He refused, bound by years of shared trials and friendship that went beyond creator and creation, unwilling to abandon the only companion who had never left his side. And in the wake of the shipyard's destruction, for the first time, the Empire's invincibility seemed to crack. What he once thought impossible now stood before him, a test of will against sheer magnitude. Size and mass meant nothing to the Force, so he poured every ounce of strength into halting the plummeting warship, straining under its colossal weight until desperation drove him to focus on the one image that could anchor him, her, and with that, he steered the vessel into the ground before him. Chaos erupted as wreckage skidded toward him, yet slowing its fall gave him the chance to escape unscathed, only to find the droid had survived both their duel and the crash. Its core programming damaged, so the drive to destroy him was gone, though the machine deemed itself useless and begged to be left behind. He refused, bound by years of shared trials and friendship that went beyond creator and creation, unwilling to abandon the only companion who had never left his side. And in the wake of the shipyard's destruction, for the first time, the Empire's invincibility seemed to crack. Word of the triumph on Rexus Prime rippled through the galaxy, opening the door for Kota to arrange a meeting in Cloud City with a powerful senator whose influence could bolster the growing rebellion. Returning to the city for the first time since rescuing Kota from his downward spiral, the rogue Shadow Crew discovered it had fallen under the grip of criminals led by a fierce Mandalorian. Learning the senator had gone to negotiate, Kota urged Starkiller to prove his worth by confronting the warlord. Cutting through waves of mercenaries and Mandalorians, Starkiller uncovered that the senator had been seized by a skilled Gungan fighter serving the enemy. Determined to secure the Senate support, he fought and defeated the Gungan, then called Juno to prepare for a fast escape. Finally facing the Mandalorian leader, Starkiller met a warrior eager to test himself against a supposed Jedi. The duel was fierce, but Sith training tipped the balance, and with the Mandalorian beaten, the senator gratefully pledged his support for the rebellion, vowing to reach out to Kota when the moment was right. With the arrival of Bliss, the rebels' ranks now outnumbered the Senate supporters, and Orana informed the apprentice he would soon meet with two of the Empire's boldest Senate adversaries. The talks at Cantham House unfolded smoothly, but he couldn't ignore the growing danger as prominent resistance figures joined their cause. While others negotiated, he sparred with Kota, sidestepping every question about his past and concealing his secret allegiance. Contact from his master soon followed, witnessed by Juno, as he reported that their plans were advancing, yet warned that exposure of their connection would doom the mission. The dark figure insisted on further contact, leaving Juno to press for answers, which he deflected with assurances that no interference would come. After the Coruscant talks, Orana directed the crew to Corellia, where leaders agreed on a unified command. Orana funding, Baelus arming, Mothma supplying troops, and the apprentice serving as the Force-powered figurehead. In a surprising turn, Rahm reappeared sober and ready to join the fight. The gathering, now known as the Corellian Treaty, had barely marked the rebellion's formal rise when the chamber doors burst open and the Empire struck. The Dark Warrior led the charge, ordering his troops to capture the rebels alive for the Emperor's judgment. Only one Jedi dared resist, igniting his blade against the Sith, but was hurled aside like a discarded doll. With him down, the Dark Warrior strode to his apprentice, praising his work before revealing the truth he had been his secret pupil all along, a revelation that shattered the rebels' trust. Yet admiration quickly turned to betrayal as the Master, suspecting doubt, flung the meeting table at his stunned apprentice. Surviving the blow, the apprentice rose in fury, questioning his master's meddling, only to learn that every moment of his life had been a lie since childhood, the Master never intending to overthrow the Emperor and never wanting him to take that place. Cast toward the cliff's edge, the apprentice faced his own guilt for using the rebels, realizing he had never been in control. The Master advanced to end him, but defiant to the last, the apprentice warned that his captor would never be free without him. Just as the final strike fell, a figure from the Master's past lunged in, catching him off guard in the heat of battle. In a clash of blades and betrayal, the Dark Warrior struck down his foe, only to reveal it had been a droid mimic all along. Yet in the chaos, the fallen apprentice lost his hold on a cliff and plunged into the depths. Believing him dead, the Dark Warrior departed, unaware his quarry had survived. Rescued at the brink of unconsciousness by a determined pilot, the apprentice shed the false name he'd been given and reclaimed his true identity. No longer bound to the darkness, he declared himself a Jedi, vowing to save the captured rebels. Seeking answers, he plunged into a trance, wrestling with visions of many possible futures until the truth emerged. The rebels were imprisoned aboard an unfinished battle station in the Horus system. As he prepared for his most perilous mission, he shared a final, unflinching farewell with his ally, knowing there was every chance he would not return. In what could be their last moment together, she dashed forward and pressed her lips to his, a sudden spark of warmth before the storm. He blinked in surprise, then returned the kiss, parting ways as the reformed warrior strode into the colossal battle station. Inside, he ignited chaos, freeing enslaved Wookiees to distract Imperial forces while searching for the rebels' whereabouts. Some of the liberated Wookiees guided him deeper, toward the Emperor's observation dome. Following their lead, he cut through his shadow guard and 4 crimson-clad enforcers, reaching the corridor that led to his ultimate target, only to face the looming figure of his former master. With a hiss, both blades flared. The dark figure admitted his strength had grown, but claimed he still had much to learn. Steeled by his turn to the light, the warrior declared there was nothing left his old master could teach. Blows rained down, each impact a reminder that this foe was far deadlier than any phantom opponent he had faced. Regaining his focus, he struck back hard enough to force a change in tactics, realizing this was the first time they fought as equals. No one held back as their duel raged into the throne room under the gaze of the Emperor and watching senators. The warrior taunted that he had broken free from control, unlike his master, who remained bound to an even greater shadow. Rage twisted the masked face, and the Dark Warrior drew deeper from his power, his strikes now burning with pure fury. In what could be their last moment together, she dashed forward and pressed her lips to his, a sudden spark of warmth before the storm. He blinked in surprise, then returned the kiss, parting ways as the reformed warrior strode into the colossal battle station. Inside, he ignited chaos, freeing enslaved Wookiees to distract Imperial forces while searching for the rebels' whereabouts. Some of the liberated Wookiees guided him deeper toward the Emperor's observation dome. Following their lead, he cut through a shadow guard and 4 crimson-clad enforcers, reaching the corridor that led to his ultimate target only to face the looming figure of his former master. With a hiss, both blades flared. The dark figure admitted his strength had grown but claimed he still had much to learn. Steeled by his turn to the light, the warrior declared there was nothing left his old master could teach. Blows rained down, each impact a reminder that this foe was far deadlier than any phantom opponent he had faced. Regaining his focus, he struck back hard enough to force a change in tactics, realizing this was the first time they fought as equals. No one held back as their duel raged into the throne room under the gaze of the Emperor and watching senators. The warrior taunted that he had broken free from control, unlike his master, who remained bound to an even greater shadow. Rage twisted the masked face, and the dark warrior drew deeper from his power, his strikes now burning with pure fury. With his choice made, he turned away from vengeance against the masked warrior and defied the Emperor, launching into a fierce assault that was met with a last-second lightsaber block. In a clash of power and skill, neither gained the upper hand, their blades and force abilities locked in perfect balance. As the duel raged, the Emperor revealed a cruel truth. The young warrior had never been a secret apprentice at all, for every step of his life had been orchestrated from the beginning, his abduction ordered by the Emperor himself, with his supposed master merely a facade. The revelation only fueled his fury, and with a surge of strength, he hurled the Emperor into the ceiling, sending him crashing to the floor. Seizing the moment, he tossed his communicator to the rebels to arrange their escape, advancing on the Emperor as he struggled to rise. The Emperor taunted him, claiming it was his destiny to kill and replace him. But instead of striking, the warrior extinguished his blade, choosing what was right over the dark temptation. As the rebel ship arrived, he ordered the others aboard, but the Emperor struck again with a storm of force lightning. Refusing to let his mentor suffer, he stepped into the path of the attack, enduring agony so intense it felt as if a star was igniting within his chest, yet holding firm in his final stand. Is this helpful so far? The raw fury of the Sith Lord's lightning tore into him, far worse than anything endured under the Dark Warrior's brutal training, yet somehow he drew on a hidden reserve of strength, absorbing the searing energy and hurling it back at its source. With the Dark Warrior recovered and chasing the rebels, he seized the Emperor by the shoulders, forcing him to taste the full weight of his own power. Driven by the desperate need to save his friends, he surrendered himself entirely to the Force, unleashing every ounce of energy in a blinding shockwave that ripped through the throne room and hurled all combatants aside. As silence fell, he lay broken on the cold floor, life slipping away, his thoughts lingering on the one he could never be with. Whispering his true name one last time, he let go, his spirit embraced by the Force. The Dark Rulers survived the blast, one furious at losing a potential successor and now burdened with a weakened disciple, while the other turned his thoughts to the rebels, never realizing their uprising had been sparked by his own schemes, and that the one they had manipulated had sealed their fate in more ways than they knew. His clash with Sidious shattered the unity of the Sith, and Vader, realizing his master had always planned to replace him, resolved to find a powerful apprentice to destroy Sidious. Galen became the spark that drove Vader toward betrayal, something he had never truly considered, even when training Marek. Meanwhile, inspired by Galen's sacrifice, the rebels launched a full-scale uprising against the Empire. Juno and Bail returned to Corellia to recover the damaged droid Proxy, who revealed Marek had entrusted him with Juno's safety. Soon after, they joined the rebel leaders on Kashyyyk, adopting Marek's family crest as their emblem of hope, a symbol future generations would wield without knowing the hero behind it. Juno later asked Kota if he had always known the assassin who blinded him was the one who founded the Rebel Alliance, and the blind Jedi admitted he had, revealing that Juno was the reason Galen never fully succumbed to darkness. 6 months later, Vader brought Galen's body to Kamino, seeking to create a more obedient, powerful clone. After many failures, Subject 1138 emerged stronger than the original but haunted by his memories. Drawn by lingering feelings for Juno, he escaped Kamino, taking the name Starkiller, and began a quest to find her, only to learn she had been captured by Vader. After a fierce showdown with the Dark Lord, the clone struck him down and freed the pilot, but the victory came with a chilling warning. As long as she lived, her fate would bind his. Refusing to be chained by those words, he left the Dark Lord behind and escaped with her, throwing his lot in with the rebellion. Yet the shadow of cloning rose again. Another version was created, stripped of old memories and devoid of sentiment, even capable of cutting down her holographic image without hesitation. When the rebel assault on Kamino brought battle to the cloning facility, the Dark Lord was defeated and captured once more, his hoped-for savior clone choosing not to intervene. In the end, the original warrior and his clone had fulfilled their destinies, the Jedi laying the groundwork for a triumphant rebel alliance, while the new warrior lived out the life with her that he had always dreamed of.